We have Roy Byers. He's the executive director and co-chair of the Take Back Our Freedoms group. Dr. Roger Hodgkinson, MD. He's a medical specialist, and he hails from Edmonton, Alberta. Dr. Paul Alexander, former member of the WHO, Pan American Health Organization, and White House advisor. And last but not least, we have Bruce Pardee. He's a professor of law and executive director of Rights Probe. So just to start things off, I'll say this. Although our Prime Minister has used very incendiary language, inflammatory language, to describe the truckers in Ontario, the truckers in Ottawa, our own eyes tell us that that is a falsehood. Our own eyes show us the bouncy castles. Oh, I missed Pastor Henry Hildebrand. Pardon me, I'm so sorry, Henry. Pastor Henry Hildebrand, who probably doesn't need any introduction, will also be speaking at the podium today. And Pastor Henry is with the Church of God in Elmer, Ontario, and I've had the pleasure on many occasions of sharing the podium with Pastor Henry. Sorry about that, but our eyes reveal to us the facts on the ground. The last 2 weeks, Ottawa, downtown Ottawa with the truckers, has been a very festive, very friendly, very family-oriented. It's even difficult to call it a protest when you actually see the people playing road hockey, people on bouncy castles, and truckers and their supporters providing food to the truckers, to those in need, and helping everyone. Tending to the streets, cleaning the snow, removing garbage. It's been a very exuberant, very energetic, very exciting time. And from this, we can also see that it is a very organic, spontaneous, grassroots movement for freedom in Canada. Now we see similar type truckers movements and freedom movements in every provincial legislature, at many of our border crossings, and it continues to grow and grow. But all that without recognizing and without stating, in my humble view, all Canadians, even those who don't understand this, all Canadians owe a great debt of gratitude to our truckers, for they have done one thing that none of us had seen in 2 years. They brought hope to Canada. They brought hope not just to Canada, but they brought hope to the world. They thought they were running empty to Ottawa and driving thousands of miles with an empty rig, but it was full of hope. And they have uplifted the spirits of Canadians. They've uplifted the spirits of the world. And we have seen similar type movements grow out of that message of hope. So, but I do want to say, in every democracy, and especially so in Canada we've seen, is that government only governs with the consent of the people. This freedom movement, these truckers, have shown that they have lost confidence in our government, in our Prime Minister, and our premiers. And we also know this: they are dug in, they are entrenched, and they will not be leaving until freedom returns to all Canadians. And make no mistake, we've seen it for 2 weeks, and this will continue as we move into our third. Truckers are the backbone of our democracy in Canada. So with that, I want to introduce Maxime Bernier, leader of the PPC party, to the microphone.
Thank you, merci. Thank you, Randy. Hello, everybody. I will read a declaration in English and after that in French, and I will be able to answer your questions after all these gentlemen. We will be there, yes, to answer a lot of questions, I hope. So, today, I want to talk about the importance of healing the growing and dangerous rift in our society. When a group of people feel they are being systematically disadvantaged, they can either suffer in silence or organize to protest. In a democratic society, legitimate protest is a safety valve. Its purpose is to alert everyone that there is a fundamental social problem to address through peaceful means instead of violence. Over the past years, the Prime Minister has shown understanding and support for protest by various groups, including indigenous opponents of pipelines, Black Lives Matter, and even farmers in India. The BLM organization is run by self-described communists, and BLM demonstrations in the summer of 2020 led to rioting, arson, destruction, and physical injuries in many North American cities. And yet, Mr. Trudeau went to kneel at one such demonstration here in Ottawa, and the media covered it as a legitimate protest. In contrast, Mr. Trudeau has been nothing but vicious and vindicative in his attacks against opponents of COVID mandates and restrictions in general, and the truckers' convoy in particular, even though they have been entirely peaceful and non-violent. Instead of listening to and trying to understand these Canadians and adopt his policies to avoid creating a larger rift in our society, the Prime Minister has demonized them. Since the last fall election, he has adopted even more repressive measures to marginalize them and crush all dissidents. Yesterday, one of his own MPs said his government's policies on COVID have been politicized and divisive, and that they unfairly stigmatize some Canadians. As for the mainstream media, they have becoming nothing less than the propaganda arm of the government. I have never in all my life seen so many outright lies, distortions, and disinformation in the media, especially when it comes to reporting what's going on here in Ottawa. A peaceful democratic trust. Now, a large and growing minority of Canadians have lost trust in our government, in our institutions, in our media. They feel like they are being treated as enemies of society, subhumans. These people won't be going away and won't stop protesting. So, you in federal and provincial governments and you in the media have a choice. You can either double down on the demonization and repression, which will only widen the social rift and lead to further protests and chaos, or you can de-escalate. COVID measures are quickly being abandoned in other countries and in some provinces here in Canada. The Prime Minister can put an end to this crisis today. He should announce that he will eliminate all mandates and restrictions and that he will focus his efforts on working with provinces to protect the most vulnerable Canadians while respecting everyone's rights and freedoms. Be a statesman, Mr. Trudeau. Stop widening the rift in our society. End this crisis now. Et maintenant, je vais lire la même déclaration en français. Aujourd'hui, je veux parler de l'importance de combler le fossé grandissant et dangereux au sein de notre société. Lorsque les gens se sentent systématiquement discriminés, ils peuvent soit souffrir en silence ou soit s'organiser pour protester. Dans une société démocratique, la protestation légitime est une soupape de sécurité. Son but est d'alerter tout le monde qu'il y a un problème fondamental dans notre société qu'il faut résoudre par des moyens pacifiques plutôt que par la violence. Ces dernières années, le premier ministre a fait preuve de compréhension et de soutien envers les protestations de divers groupes, notamment des opposants autochtones aux pipelines, Black Lives Matter et même des agriculteurs indiens. L'organisation BLM est dirigée par des communistes autoproclamés et les manifestations de BLM à l'été 2020 ont entraîné des émeutes, des incendies criminels, des destructions et des blessures physiques dans de nombreuses villes nord-américaines. Et pourtant, M. Trudeau est allé s'agenouiller lors de l'une de ces manifestations ici à Ottawa. Et les médias ont couvert ces manifestations de façon légitime. En revanche, M. Trudeau a été extrêmement agressif et vindicatif dans ses attaques contre les opposants aux obligations et restrictions liées à la COVID. Et surtout, l'action des camionneurs en particulier, même s'ils ont été entièrement pacifiques et non violents. Au lieu d'écouter et d'essayer de comprendre ces Canadiens et d'adopter ces politiques pour éviter de creuser encore plus grand un fossé dans notre société, le premier ministre les a diabolisés. Depuis les élections de l'automne dernier, il a adopté des mesures encore plus régressives envers les gens qui veulent défendre leurs droits et libertés. Il a fait ça pour les marginaliser et écraser toute dissidence. Hier, l'un de ses propres députés a déclaré que les mesures COVID de son gouvernement étaient devenues politisées et sont une source de division et qu'elles stigmatisaient injustement certains Canadiens. Quant aux médias conventionnels, ils sont devenus rien de moins que le bras de propagande du gouvernement. Je n'ai jamais vu autant dans ma vie des mensonges éhontés, de la désinformation, des faits qui sont déformés dans les médias, surtout lorsqu'il s'agit de couvrir ce qui se passe ici à Ottawa. Une société pacifique et démocratique ne peut pas fonctionner correctement sans confiance. Aujourd'hui, une minorité importante et croissante de Canadiens ont perdu confiance en notre gouvernement, en nos institutions, en nos médias. Ils ont l'impression d'être traités comme des ennemis de la société, des sous-humains. Ces gens ne vont pas disparaître du jour au lendemain et ne vont pas cesser de manifester. Vous, au sein des gouvernements fédéraux et provinciaux, et vous, dans les médias, avez un choix à faire. Vous pouvez soit miser encore plus sur la diabolisation et la répression, ce qui ne fera qu'élargir le fossé social et conduire à davantage de protestations et de chaos. Ou vous pouvez désamorcer la crise. Les mesures COVID sont rapidement abandonnées dans d'autres pays et dans certaines provinces canadiennes. Le premier ministre peut mettre fin à cette crise, et ce, dès aujourd'hui. Il devrait annoncer qu'il abrogera toutes les obligations et restrictions et qu'il concentrera ses efforts à collaborer avec les provinces pour protéger les Canadiens les plus vulnérables tout en respectant les droits et libertés de tous. Monsieur Trudeau, soyez un homme d'État, arrêtez d'empirer le clivage social, mettez fin à cette crise, vous en avez l'autorité, et ce, dès maintenant. Merci.
Thank you, Matt. Next, we have Sandy from Alberta, who will be joined up to share us some reflections and thoughts.
Hi there. My name's Sandy Williams from a little town, northern Alberta, Canuso. We had no idea we were going to be taking a trip across Canada. Myself and two boys and my daughter, we jumped in the truck a few Mondays ago. Anyways, we had no idea what we were getting ourselves into. We packed barbecue and cooler, and we were just gonna set out, and we knew we had to do something. Everybody was pretty broken around the ranch, and like many people have been feeling pretty isolated, pretty alone. And anyways, we threw all the gear in there. Wife wished us off, and we hit Edmonton. And soon after we left Edmonton, and between Calgary or Leduc and Calgary, we were running way behind schedule. About 4 hours, we joined up with the convoy, and soon we had no idea, because we heard that it was kind of put together pretty last minute, 11, 12 days. Still don't really understand how the whole convoy was put together, but we knew we were onto something, or knew that we were part of something huge, when we started seeing every overpass just littered with people and more. And as the day went on and as the night went on, we rolled into Red Deer at about 12:30, and it was just like rolling into a town with a Saturday, the parade there on plus 20 day, but it's minus 5, 6, 12 at night, and people are sitting there just lying in the roads. And pretty heartwarming to see, like, that the people were all sitting there for the same reasons that we were traveling down the road. And it went on like that. It continued to be better and better as we traveled. And to see all the people coming out that understood why they were there, and didn't understand why they were that they were standing with their neighbors, and the ones that were probably feeling the same way, isolated, alone. So it didn't take very long to figure out that we weren't alone, and the vast majority has been waiting for something to change. And the truckers, I think, have been able to give a voice for a lot of people that haven't been heard for a long time. So as we continued on across the country, our hearts just got fuller and fuller with pride. And the Canada you knew was always there, and been lied to by whichever sources you want to say. By the time we hit here, our hearts were pretty full, and we've never been prouder in our lives to be Canadian. And yeah, the pride as we get here, and the welcoming, the warm people that we've met here in the city and everywhere, it's just phenomenal. One thing I got to share with as my daughter, but she doesn't really understand. They've had a pretty good life up in northern Alberta, and we've isolated from a lot of this stuff. So, but we were driving across, and we had hit Winnipeg, I think it was, and there's a lot of people there. And she looked out, and she made eye contact with lots of kids and people and stuff, and she's seen them teared up and crying, and trying to explain that to her at her age right now. I'm blessed that she doesn't understand at all, but it's there. It's so real for every single person that's living in it right now. But one thing we all got to know is we're not alone in all this, and we're more intact as Canadians than we ever have been, and more whole. So yeah, it's been an honor, and the movement isn't going away anytime soon. And each one of those trucks are pretty symbolic out there, but each one's packing with them wherever, 5,000, 500,000, whatever town you're from, whatever, it's representing a large number. So I hope that the government understands it's more than a protest. It's just we want our way of life back to every which way we had it. So that's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Sandy. And maybe before I introduce the next speaker, Roy Byers, there are some other announcements and another weekend of fun-filled festivities planned for this weekend. And we also have a large contingent called the Blue Collar Convoy organized and coming into the city this weekend. Well, this is construction and trades workers showing support for the truckers, just as the farmers did last weekend with their tractors. Construction and trades people will be coming up, and they're calling that the Blue Collar Convoy. So, and we'll have more announcements. Maybe Roy might make some of those right now. So, join Roy.
Go Roy. Thanks very much, Randy. And yeah, I'm with Taking Back Our Freedoms, organization founded this past October. I was kind of trying to mind my own business, but when Jason Kenney just straight up lied to us last summer and said the passports are off the table, it'll never happen, and then the next thing you know, he's introducing the vaccine mandate, which I consider just vulgar and immoral, to force people to gunpoint to take a vaccine. You say, well, there's not a gun here. It's just the loss of job and you don't qualify for unemployment. So just starvation, right? So this for me was so outrageous that I had to work with George Bears, a co-founder of Taking Back Our Freedoms, and said, this is enough. We have to end this nonsense as quickly as we can. And so we founded an organization, and Taking Back Our Freedoms, I think, speaks for itself, what we stand for. We invited, first and foremost, Premier Peckford to be involved with us, and he was glad to become the chairman of the board of Taking Back Our Freedoms. And from there, we built a team, including doctors, and Dr. Piness, as you know, is a professor of ethics. I think you all know her story. And I just urge the media, get on the right side of history. It's time for you to remember why you became a journalist. Remember why you took on this great endeavor. It's to challenge the government, not to ally yourself with government. And it's really important for you to rethink the kind of approach that you've taken. Just report both sides. That's all we're asking. And of course, with the team that we built, Brian Peckford, want to just make this announcement because I promise to be very short. He's going to be coming to Ottawa this weekend. And so, and we are, just to be very clear, Brian Peckford, all the doctors, all of us are here because the truckers led the way. We're in support of the Freedom Convoy. We think of them as heroes, and we are so proud to stand with them for what they are standing for. And you know, the irony of this, these truckers have common sense. These vaccines don't work. It's as simple as that. And you say, wow, these are just truckers. You're going to hear today from a doctor who's world-renowned, one of the top doctors in the world, and it's black and white. There is no data currently, I'm talking about current data, to support the use of vaccines to deal with the current variant of COVID. And you may not believe the truckers, they just happen to be right. A whole slew of doctors are coming to town this weekend as well, and they're going to be speaking loud and clear with respect to this issue. The science is on the side of the truckers. I won't steal the thunder of Dr. Alexander, but he has a very exciting announcement to make that's going to involve this coming Friday, a panel discussion that you're going to all find very, very interesting. But we're going to have a packed weekend. Doctors having a discussion, hopefully with the fine senior doctors here in Ottawa who have the data, apparently, that supports the mandates. We don't know any of that data, but we're going to invite them to bring the data. If they need to join us by webcast, they can join us that way. No excuse to not show up. Bring us the data. If it exists, show us. The whole world will be watching, and we urge them to bring the data because as far as we're concerned, the science is on the side of the truckers. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Roy. Next, well, welcome Dr. Roger Hodgkinson to the podium.
Thank you, Randy, and thank you all for attending. I'm not trying to be melodramatic here. I'm a physician, I'm a parent, and I'm a Canadian. Every life matters. Every single life matters to a physician. These are not statistics, they're not zeros and percentages. The scale of death that's been happening in this country as a result of government playing medicine is in an order of magnitude never, ever seen before. It is utterly inexcusable, and it makes me madder than hell as a physician to see the rights of physicians trampled on so mercilessly. As Randy said, we have to be enormously grateful to truckers of all people, guys with dirty fingernails, said respectfully, to leaders at this momentous time when medicine and law and media and the church in particular have failed in their duty to lead the population through this and to oppose these draconian measures, none of which have any real support. In fact, the measures that have been used, I could say quite bluntly, have not only not worked, but they've made a situation infinitely worse. We would have been through with this mess 6 months ago, no, a year and 6 months ago, if it had been treated with common sense, like we've all done with previous flu epidemics, of which this really is not materially different. Instead, we had politics playing medicine, and that's what's got us into this awful mess. COVID is, in a very real sense, a fortunate experience. Yes, tragically, people have died, many unnecessarily because of the denial of access to early treatment. But we needed a focus. We needed the point of the spear sticking at us, saying, finally, Canada, wake up. You're losing freedoms that you fought for so determinedly for years, for decades. And now is the time to rise up. And that's why we have to thank the truckers for leading us at this important time. And it's not just the truckers and vaccination. And by the way, a little digression here. Truckers can cross from PEI to Vancouver without vaccination. American truckers can truck from New York to Seattle without vaccination. And yet to go north-south, they need a vaccination? This is absolute madness. You don't have to be a rocket scientist or a medical specialist to figure that one out. No, we've reached the end of the line. It really is a catastrophic intervention that has to stop. It has to stop immediately. No dithering here. People are dying now. Pregnant women are being injected now with an experimental agent for which we have no data. Does anyone here remember the word thalidomide? Thalidomide. That could happen all over again. Look at our children who've been affected the worst of all the sectors in society. Our children, our most precious asset. They've not only been suffering the absence of nonverbal education, the smile, a hug, being made to feel suspicious of anyone around them that's going to last them lifelong. But now they're being attacked by a vaccine that isn't necessary and could well kill them. Is child sacrifice what we're all about in this country, to appease the new gods? I don't think so. And then beyond that, they're going to suffer for the rest of their lives because they'll be paying off the national debt, with the net result being a loss of standard of living. That's what this government has done to this population. And it has to stop now. Thank you.
Thank you, Roger. And next, I would ask Pastor Henry Hildebrandt to come to the podium.
Let's have prayer together. Father, we thank you that we can come to you at this hour. Lord, you see that there's tremendous gifting in this room. Lord, there is tremendous potential in this room. Lord, we ask you that you would help us, dear God. Lord, as the truckers have shown us, Lord, what it takes. We ask you, Lord, that you would help us. You would give wisdom and guidance, dear Father, to those that are leading, dear Father, to every captain, every leader. Lord, we ask that you would help, and Lord, help our government. Father, you see that we are in dire need, dear God. And Lord, but we are so glad that we know you, and we know that you are well able to help us. Be with us now, dear Father, and help us in Jesus' name. Amen. Amen. So I am elated to be in Ottawa, and the truckers have done something. They have brought us to a level that no one else was willing to do. And I'll speak to the pastors of this country, to the churches. You are late. You should have been here right from the get-go, because had we stood up like we should have stood up, we would have never gotten into this mess. Canada is founded upon principles that recognize the supremacy of God. 25 Bible scriptures inscribed in the Peace Tower, in the Parliament. And I'll yell that out and scream that out and preach that as long as I have breath. We are a country that is founded on God. You will not succeed unless you take God. And I am here to represent God. And I thank God. I'm sorry, it sounds like preaching here. I've been here for 12 days. I can't get myself to leave here, because every time I see a trucker, I say, thank God. Thank God, the sacrifice they brought, left their families, left their job, came here not knowing what their future holds.
What is our excuse? And I want to thank them, and I want to thank God for what God is doing in this time. Folks, our prayers are answered. It's here. One MP after another is going against their leader, is going against our Prime Minister. Our Prime Minister has spoken words that are wrong against our Constitution, against our Bill of Rights, and most importantly, against the Word of God. Our Prime Minister will not succeed. Mark my word. The whole world is watching. The world knows that our truckers are leading the way, and we applaud them. We're thankful for them. And by God's grace, we're going to show the population what it means to get back on the foundation. When you pull the foundation out, the house will not stand. By God's grace, I will stand and speak for God as long as I can. God bless you.
Thank you, Pastor Henry. Next, we have Dr. Paul Elias Alexander joining us at the podium.
Thanks again. Thank you again for having me to speak. And first of all, I want to go on record again because I've been on record for 2 years now. Definitely 1 year that under no condition, none, there's no data anywhere in the world, no one, no NU, no TAM, no Fauci, no Birx, no CDC, no NIH, no Health Canada, no FAC. No one has prosecuted the case as to why your child must get a vaccine. Under no condition must a Canadian parent allow these vaccines into the arms of their children. I know enough about these vaccines. These vaccines can severely harm your children long term. Now, this is a blue collar movement now. Omicron presents an exit strategy and an off-ramp to the government, to the governments of the world. This is the way out of this pandemic. Omicron is mild. It can be treated like seasonal influenza. And the most important issue that we need to consider today as to why the mandates are moot is because these vaccines do not cut the chain of transmission. If a vaccine does not stop transmission, therefore the vaccine mandate must end. The transmission issue is the key issue here. And the reality about it is, when we look back now, for 2 years, we've been telling Canada, we've been telling the United States and Great Britain and Australia, every nation, every single COVID policy failed. Every lockdown in this world failed. Every school closure failed. Every mask mandate failed. They have failed in every single thing they have done. And we cannot remain in a posture of fear, where we are in fear of the hypothetical emergence of some virus in the future at some uncertain, unknown time. We cannot. We have to end this now. You cannot tell a trucker coming to the border because they are unvaccinated, willing to exercise their natural immunity, that they cannot come into Canada and earn a living. You cannot tell a Canadian trucker that they cannot move about within Canada and earn a living. They cannot go to the restaurant. They cannot live a normal life. When the data is absolutely clear. I challenge anyone, any public service person, any public health official in Canada. I challenge you to come Friday to sit down with Dr. Byron Brittle, Dr. Roger Hodgkinson, and myself. You can bring the entire Public Health Agency of Canada. You could bring the entire Health Canada. And you, Dr. Nu, and you, Theresa Tam. You, Theresa Tam, who led this response from Canada, you have failed. I have followed you. I have followed you scientifically. You have failed, abject failure. So you come and you bring whatever science you have. You bring it to the table. We will bring our science. You have no science. You have no basis for these lockdowns. And it is time. It is time that the Prime Minister stops this fear-mongering. The COVID pandemic is over. It is time that we end the pandemic emergency. There is no more reason for the emergency, and allow Canadians now to live freedom, free lives again, and long live the truckers.
Thank you, Dr. Paul. Now I invite Professor Bruce Party up to the podium.
Thank you, Randy. I'll be quick. I'm the last one, and you can get to your questions. I want to just briefly address 2 points. You may have heard suggestions that the truckers have made their point, and they should now pack up and go. And you may have also heard that what needs to happen next is a negotiation. Both these ideas are misguided. They miss the point. The point is that vaccine mandates and other COVID rules are illegitimate. Not just bad policy, not just inconvenient, they are illegitimate. The truckers were very clear before they arrived. They are free people. They are not about to agree to not be free. I think you'll find the truckers regard their freedoms as non-negotiable. And I don't think you'll find them leaving until the mandates are gone. So there's really no point in pursuing negotiation. And in particular, there's nothing much that the city of Ottawa can do to achieve this aim. Now, yes, it is true that this whole problem, the mandates in various guises and other COVID rules, is both federal and provincial. Now, we happen to be in Ottawa, where the federal government is located, but that doesn't mean that they're saying it's just a federal problem. This is federal and provincial. This is a national problem. So, it is what it is. And it may carry on for a good while until the change that we need is achieved. Second, liberal democracies depend on the theory of the consent of the governed. The behavior of public authorities during this COVID period has undermined that consent. It has undermined trust in government institutions. These people, the truckers and the people who support them, are essentially saying they do not consent in the way that we're all assumed to consent. This is not a protest. This is a movement. It's organic. It's spontaneous. People of all kinds are pitching in to help. There are lots of organizations who are independently working together to support our truckers. And please note, as I'm sure you're aware, Ottawa may be ground zero, but this is spreading far and wide, spontaneously, organically, in Canada and outside it. So don't think that this is just the thing. This is just a few trucks blocking a few streets. That would be to misconstrue what is going on. People in this country have been sleeping, and our truckers have woken them up. It's significant not just because of COVID. Now, it looks like COVID is the problem. And believe me, COVID, the COVID rules, the COVID regime is the most immediate problem, for sure. But this is really a challenge to the nanny state, to the authority of our ruling class. And this is why they're so upset about this. It's not just a few streets being blocked. That's not a big deal. This is a challenge to the legitimacy and authority of our ruling class. There's a movement coming together that says, enough. We are challenging the idea, the very idea, that experts, officials, politicians should be able to tell us how to live. And that transcends COVID. Once COVID rules are gone, then we have something else to talk about. We'll take questions, shall we?
Yeah. Thank you, Bruce. Why don't we just all stand up? Daniel, you've got a microphone there. You can, if anybody wants to pose a question, here we have a question over here. Daniel, if we could get you to speak into the microphone and direct your question to David from CBC.
Yes.
Hi.
So my question is for Maxime Bernier. What do you think the movement, as you call it, has achieved as we head into the third week?
I believe it's
Yes, please.
Yeah.
I believe it's a huge success. People are tired about all that, and the truckers, what they started and what they did for the last 2 weeks, all across the country, not only in Ottawa, all across the country, that's a big achievement. And I believe that this movement will be successful. I believe that we are on the right side of history. When you have these experts and lawyers and constitutional that are telling the government and the politicians in Ottawa and in provincial governments that what they're doing is unethical, unfair, unconstitutional, now you have the population that is realizing that, yes, I believe that you're right. And because of the movement of these truckers, that, it's a grassroots movement. You cannot stop a good idea. You cannot stop a freedom idea. You cannot stop a grassroots movement.
But the mandates are still in place.
They will stop. They will have to stop.
Okay, and just a follow-up question. We heard from Mayor Watson today, who was saying that he's willing to meet with the truckers as long as they remove their truck.
They won't.
I think you got the response there, Dave. Next question. Anybody else?
And Andrew Steele from
We have-
Steel Truth. And
Yes.
what's your question?
My question, first of all, congratulations from the United States. We're thrilled to see Canada leading the way on this initiative. Has tip to everybody in the room. Tremendous, tremendous. How are you going to work in the current government to make sure that this never happens again? Because like you said, they're going to try and push for the next pandemic and the next pandemic. Do you have a government in parallel in place to say we're going to be listening and we elect these people to govern us going forward?
Do you have a particular person that you want to direct that question to?
Sure, to the MP Randy Hillier.
Okay. So I think Professor Party alluded to that, what the answer is. The people of Canada have awakened. They have awakened during this very, very dark time. What Canada looks like after the COVID mandates are repealed and removed, I think Canada is going to look somewhat different than it did in February of 2020. I think what we will see is a very energized Canadian population, a more intellectually aware population, a population that understands that a democracy does not function without the individual's participation. What that actually looks like at the end of the day, I don't know, but I believe that there is a great silver lining in this dark cloud called COVID, and good people will come together and we will find that silver lining.
Let me ask a follow-up question.
Sure. Go ahead.
In terms of the Great Awakening worldwide, with all eyes on Canada right now, do you expect this to result in a shift in how governments are looked upon by the free people? Because we know that God gives people their freedom and gives us our rights. They don't come from government. Do you expect that to change worldwide?
Absolutely. Or God help us if it doesn't.
That's right.
This is, there is, I think, and we can say, there is I've watched this now for nearly 2 years. There is a great awakening happening within the people of the free world. There is a great awakening to the importance of faith, of family, and of freedoms, and that will be long lasting. This has been now ingrained, and I'll just say, as I walk and talk to the truckers here in Ottawa, and one night when I went out and met Sandy, and there his children are in the rig with him. Okay, Canadians are living and breathing freedom now. They're living, breathing, and being educated in the importance of participating in their democracy. And I truly hope that doesn't leave us again ever. So, thank you. Yeah.
I just want to add, what is happening in our country is because we have a state of emergency in every province in this country. So that must end. The mandates, but also we must be able to live our lives like we want. So the state of emergency in Quebec, all across the country, must end, and we will be free again after that.
Thank you. I believe this gentleman here had your hand up.
Hi, I'm Charles. I'm with Le
Ledois?
You talked a bit earlier about what's going to happen this weekend. Can you develop more on what Ottawa might live this weekend?
We're going to have a very festive weekend again. We'll be, the blue collar convoy is coming in. It will be a substantial convoy of service trucks and work trucks from blue collar workers, people who make Canada run. They'll be here. We've heard that Brian Peckford will be here, and the science table will be here. Many doctors. I would also say, everybody, I'm jumping the gun here, but I'm going to jump the gun anyway, just because Ledois asked me this question. On Sunday morning, we will be having a Flat in the Fear pancake breakfast, free for everybody in downtown Ottawa. So come out for some. Come out for the Flat in the Fear pancakes. There might be a couple other things, but I don't want to reveal the present all at once.
The police, an hour ago or something, said if I understand well, what they're saying, they're going to increase maybe ticketing or arrests and criminal. If you're on the street, what?
We're dug in, and we're not leaving. We're dug in. Right? The people are speaking. Right? We're not going to be fearful or threatened. We are here to regain our freedoms. That you can take to the bank. I'll let Dr. Paul.
Hi. Thanks, Randy. I just wanted to remind everyone that we did issue a formal invitation to the public health officials, Canadian government, such as Dr. Howard New, Dr. Shelley Deeks, and Dr. Teresa Tam. And that meeting would be here in this hotel at 1 p.m. on Friday. I believe it's in the York Room. And the reality about it is that what we also did, besides inviting them, I also made sure that we included the Prime Minister's office to make sure that no invited official can claim that they did not get the invitation, because it's the function of the PMO's office to ensure that communication goes to where it needs to be, so that the Prime Minister's office and the Prime Minister is on notice that you have to ensure that these public health officials are here on Friday, because we will be here to have this debate to inform Canadians as to why these mandates should be dropped and must be dropped now. Thank you.
Next question. This over here in the far corner. Oh. State your name.
My name's Andrew. I'm from Durst.
From Durst? Okay.
This question is for Sandy. It's reported that your family is one of your two sons and daughter are one of 100 kids that are supposedly in the protest zone, and questions the sort of if it's in their best interest to be here. If you have any comment on that, or welfare.
Sure.
Yeah, they should.
Yeah, they're learning a lot about their world that they live in, and the people they're meeting. They've never been so warm, welcoming. They're seeing the Canada that we all knew existed and we didn't know it was here. So yeah, absolutely, I think it's awesome. And yeah,
Something here?
Yeah, David Baxter with Global News. Just to follow up on my colleague's question over there. Now, the police have been saying they are going to start charging people with criminal mischief with property. Just what happens when the charges start heavy out, assuming the police follow up on what they said?
We'll deal with that problem when it shows up.
Right on. Right on.
And they will deal with the problem whenever it shows up. Okay?
And you're talking about this being a blue-collar, working-class movement. Currently, we're now, for the foreseeable future, the Rideau Center is going to be closed down. Closed down the first day of the protest. We saw we saw a large contingent of people without masks going in there. That prompted the mall to be closed until February 6th. It's now closed until further notice. We're seeing truckers being held up on both sides of the border. So we are seeing this movement hurt working people. What do you say to the people involved who are stuck, not being able to work because of the
So,
blockade?
okay, let's not have cross. For 2 years, working people have been severely harmed and injured in this country as a direct result of government policy. Direct result. We have seen significant increases in suicides, overdose. We have seen significant increases in death from those who are not at risk of COVID. Right? We have seen significant financial harm done to businesses, and we have seen hundreds of thousands of people put out of work. Right? The Rideau Center chose to close, not because of the actions of anybody in the truckers' convoy. They chose to close because they heard the inflammatory, insightful, dangerous language of Mayor Jim Watson and Justin Trudeau. As you know, downtown Ottawa is very peaceful. I am not going to buy into that falsehood, that false narrative, that anybody is a threat or that there is any danger here. This is a festive event, right? If the Rideau Center wants to close, there's many businesses that have reopened without masks, having people sitting in those businesses. I've gone down and had some shawarmas myself, and I welcome everybody to go to the businesses that promote freedom. And I will add one last thing. Through all this, through all the last 2 weeks, never have I heard Justin Trudeau or Mayor Watson or Vera Itches or anybody else talk about the spread of COVID at the Freedom Convoy 2022. Hey? They've talked about incendiary language, vile, hateful, deceitful language, but they have forgotten all about COVID during this convoy.
One last question. I appreciate the assistance in letting me get my question out. But the Rideau Center was saying they closed because of the large amount of unmasked shoppers who came in the very first day of the Freedom Convoy, and saying they couldn't guarantee the health and safety of their staff. So what do you say to Rideau Center?
Well, that's. I would rather a business make their own choices than government imposing it on them.
That's right.
You are here, Brian. No, just you're here amongst a whole lot of people. You have made a choice to be here, and as you can see, a great many people are unmasked. I've been in hotels in Ottawa for the last 12 days. Most hotels, it's hard to find somebody wearing a mask, except from the media. Okay? So, people are making choices. We are choosing how we are going to live, and that's going to continue. Next question. This fellow over here.
I just have a question for the gentleman with the black hat. What's the most inspiring thing, or what's the most happy or inspiring thing you've seen from Canadians on your journey?
That's a loaded question.
Yeah. It could be an individual thing or collective thing, whatever's touched your heart, if you have one memory or a collective thing.
Yeah, there's so many. Like what we got to witness as all the guys coming across. There's fellas in here that right now that have been sharing all the stories around here. It's pretty hard not to get a
Your kids have enjoyed seeing everybody, and it's been a
unbelievable.
a good memory
Yeah,
for
you
them.
bet. They've met people from every edge of this of Canada, and yeah, I can't to load it up into one question. All I can say is that we always knew the Canada that was out there when we were kids and how free and we knew it existed. But when you as a father and you're staring at your kids knowing that they're not going to have the freedom that we had growing up, and now to see that that's a possibility, kids out playing hockey. Again, there's probably our place down there over by where we're playing, probably 40, 50 kids playing hockey again, just being kids. And seeing that the hope in people's eyes, that's probably the charge and then people walking across the Gatineau Bridge, families offering up their houses to come, homeschool. My kids all homeschool, so they're just the love all the way around. The whole situation, I guess, is what we've been lied to as to what our country was fractured and broken, and now to see exactly how intact it is. I guess that's the gift in itself, right there. Yeah.
Hey, this gentleman over here.
All right, Michael Fossen from Bridge City News. Our team observed a couple of members of the Canadian Armed Forces in military fatigues walking around. Do any of you know why they would be here?
Supporting freedom.
They weren't very engaging in conversation.
Well, listen, that's an unfair. We can't tell why somebody, D&D has a large building close by. People work there. People in the military. My son and many military vets have been down here as well with various berets and hardware, and so who knows? You'll have to ask them.
They didn't answer.
Any other questions? Follow up? No. Oh.
Hi, Boris Lake from National Montreal. We're a Russian language newspaper from Quebec.
Oh, there's Russian agents here.
Don't worry, just Russian. So I had a question. The Ottawa Police has currently.
Who's the question for?
Mostly you, Randy, as well as you, Maxine.
Okay.
So the Ottawa Police has been saying that this movement has now become in occupation, whereas the truckers, the participants, and the organizers have made sure that this event is peaceful completely. Vast majority of people have been, in fact, peaceful. So my question would be, as politicians, as influential people, what steps are you taking to ensure that this situation doesn't, the police doesn't start taking forceful action against peaceful protesters?
Well, before I pass it over to Max, I'll just say, listen, let's not buy into the narrative. We know that Canadians are very considerate, peaceful, loving individuals. And as a rule, that extends to everybody in Canada, regardless of what uniform you might wear or what uniform you don't wear. So I'm not at all concerned, and I've talked to many truckers. Nobody's concerned about that. We expect our police officers to act to serve and protect. And I can say they're not impervious to the inflammatory language of our politicians, but nor are they swallowing it all either. Right? So we'll expect everybody to be respectful, considerate. Whatever happens, the truckers have got a good network of logistics to bring fuel, food, and also pancakes. Thanks.
Yes, I was here also the last 2 weekends. I can tell you that I saw policemen, I spoke with them. But what I can tell you, these policemen are not the same that I saw last summer when I was in Manitoba and I was arrested, handcuffed, and put in jail after a gathering in a park. That was not my country. But now I know that policemen and the Canadian forces, if they are here, and because they work here, they have a head office here also, they are with us, and they want that protest, what I prefer to call it a rally, to be a big success. And I believe that it will be like that until the end.
All right, we'll just take a couple more questions, and then we're going to be wrapping things up. Yes.
My question is mostly for the scientists and doctor. How scientists that they base their narrative on science can have their narrative as polarized as that everywhere? So why their narrative is so completely at the opposite for the government and for other scientists?
To paraphrase someone you're very familiar with, the science is settled. There's an overwhelming consensus that nothing worked. Nothing could work, nothing did work, and nothing will work. That includes the vaccinations, which are not just unnecessary, experimental, untested, and are actually killing people. I want to take this moment to point a finger directly at the principal cause of why we're all here today. And it's not the government. No, it's us physicians who have been intimidated by our colleges, both provincially and internationally. If physicians had not been intimidated by the very body that is supposed to protect you from me, if they'd been allowed to speak their mind without the threat of losing their income and their positions, then an individual patient, such as you and me in a closed examining room, would have been told the truth. The truth. They have been denied that ability to do that. We have had that for centuries. The two principal medical ethics have been trampled on by this government. First, do no harm, and informed consent. First, do no harm has been trampled on. The mandates have killed, as we've heard, more people, many more people than they've saved. But informed consent, I would put it to you, how can you give informed consent if you are not informed? And you have been denied information intentionally by the colleges that are supposed to protect you. So I say this, putting a point on it. The colleges of physicians and surgeons across this country and internationally are co-conspirators with government in state-sanctioned murder. Thank you.
And I wanted to echo what Dr. Hodgkinson has said here because, look, from the very beginning, we knew that COVID was responsive very positively to early outpatient treatment. And yet doctors in Canada, in the United States, across the world, their hands were tied by their governments. These faceless, technocratic, bureaucratic people tied the hands of these clinicians. They refused to allow them to use their clinical judgment and their best decision making. In the United States, approximately 900,000 people have died of COVID. We've modeled the data now, me, McCullough, Risch, Zelenko, etc., and we have shown that approximately 840,000 people would be alive today had early treatment been allowed. And what Dr. Hodgkinson has said is perfectly correct. The problem here is that we don't represent just two scientists with Dr. Pones or Dr. Phillips or Dr. Francis Christian. There are thousands of Canadian physicians and academic scientists who write me. In the United States also at CDC and FDA and NIH, they write me and they call me and they tell me the problem, Paul, is Hodgkinson, Peter McCullough, Robert Malone, Harvey Risch, you people have the courage and the bravery that we lack. But we want to speak, but we cannot. As Hodgkinson said, they would lose their academic appointment, as is happening in Canada. They would lose their grant. They would lose their positions. And this is why today you've had this divide. The divide is not that the truckers didn't have an accurate common sense in stating that these mandates must fall. It's not just Hodgkinson and myself as academic scientists and clinicians who are saying that these mandates must fall and have no scientific basis. We have thousands of scientists, but they are afraid. And the time has come that you must become brave and stand up to the colleges and stand up to the government and say enough. Natural immunity is far superior than vaccinal immunity. You should have said that in the beginning. You have contributed to the failure here. You have failed, and it is time you right the ship and come forward now.
We've got an online question, and then we'll go over here next.
Yeah, we got Ann Vandersteel. Go ahead, Ann.
Just a statement for you guys, basically, to quote Orwell, whoever controls the present controls the past. And who controls the past controls the future. And what does the future look like to these tyrants? It's a boot stomping on the human face forever. And I just want to let you guys know that America is with you. We just had 500 kids in Sherwood, Oregon walk out of school and throw their masks in the trash. We have kids all over Washington, Oregon, and California that are now hiring lawyers because of you guys. You guys are inspiring the world. You're inspiring America, Australia. You're inspiring everybody. And I want to tell everybody right now, you tyrants, listen closely. We will not relinquish our rights to you. We will take them back.
Thank you, Scott. That was great.
Thank you very much, Scott. This gentleman here, your name and who you're with?
My name is Tom Lewis. I'm from Monocle Magazine. We're a current affairs magazine based in the UK. I have a question for Sandy. if that's
Yep.
okay. Thank you so much. And then for Mr. Bernier, just a very quick one as well. I just want to ask Sandy, it was really interesting hearing the story of your journey with your family. You described your life in a very rural part of Canada. I wonder how many other truckers are from quite rural parts, such as you, and whether there's some kind of solidarity forming here between people who live in quite rural areas of the country and those who live elsewhere. Is that a theme, a common theme between you?
I don't. We come from a wide diversity. Like I don't truck long haul. Do that. I've got a ranch and some construction business in the oil patch. We're trucking remotely in northern Alberta, but the guys that I'm meeting come from all over every walk of life. They're some city, some rural, but no, I think it's pretty collective all the way across. Everybody that's involved in this movement, we've all felt something that was not right from the very beginning of this all, and I'm thinking most of them Canadians it didn't resonate with, but there for whatever reason, mainstream media, like I said, we can go on. The boys here have a lot more background in that, but I can for surely tell you that the people that come from all different walks of life are feeling the same way. That something was wrong, and how deep down the rabbit hole they are, that's all up to the individual, but the overall collective knows that this is wrong, right, all the way across. Yeah.
Do you feel living on your ranch that you've been impacted in a more particular way or in a different specific way than, say, other people in other parts of the country in more other ways? What's the experience been like for you?
Fairly good in the remote parts of Alberta, and I'm sure remote parts of most of Canada would have been probably a little less. It still all depends on your community. But I feel for the people that lived in the high density areas and in the cities and stuff that would have been really impacted. Like I said, my kids haven't been impacted as much as some, and we got to see that along the way. But I think it represents very clearly when we were driving through all the cities and stuff coming across Canada. We were in high density, low density, everything in between, but the unity was all there. So it all the way across Canada, we're solid. The solidarity is there. If the numbers are saying 53%, that's kind of what the government's saying. What's that mean in COVID terms? 80% solidarity? I don't know, right? Thank you.
Okay. You want to follow up with Max? Yep.
I just wondered if you could comment again on the blockades of the bridges. How long should that go on for, and do you support blockade trade going between the two countries?
Yeah, I'm for free trades, I'm for freedom, free markets, but I understand also why that is happening right now in our country. Actually, the protests here in Ottawa, I'm supporting that. I'm supporting the truckers all across the country. And I know that what they're doing, they want to have a voice, and they don't have a voice. So now we are waiting for the federal government to answer. I said Justin Trudeau can be a statement, can be a leader. he's not a leader anymore. He can solve that in a day. Just ending all the mandates, and that will be solved. So he has all the answers in his hands, and he can also be in touch with provincial governments. Actually, as you know, in Manitoba, the mandates will end. In Saskatchewan, Saskatchewan, and also in Alberta. So he must be a leader, and all that, and everything will go back to normal. We want to regain our freedoms. That's what we want.
Okay, I think we're going to...
That is a time that you may remember called BC, before COVID. When you hugged your grandchildren, when you went to funerals, when you went to restaurants, you traveled. That was a time we want to retake. Thank you.
Listen, we're going to call it a day. I think there's one headline that should be obvious to everybody in the media when you go to print or go to do your media tonight. Solidarity is the headline with truckers in Canada. Thank you very much. I hope you enjoy the evening, and make sure you come out for some pancakes.